What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the CotAcasT. My name is Bermudez, and I am the host of the CraftoftheAir podcast. The podcast not only for aviation enthusiasts, but also those for a general interest in the world of aviation. Join us on our journey as we explore the horizon of aviation together. I'm really glad that you guys are tuned in for another episode. We have some very good topics to discuss today. Two topics actually, and I'm still not sure what the format will be. Whether each CotAcasT will be one topic. Kind of today there'll be two, so we'll see how that goes. And the very first topic that we'll discuss today will be the FAA system outage. I feel like everybody that I've spoken to over the past week has commented or asked me about that. It goes with just the job. Everybody in aviation knows that, whether you're a pilot or an aviation maintenance engineer, you like how I'm throwing that in there. You're gonna have to go back and listen to the first episode of the CotAcasT, because we did discuss that topic of whether people that work on airplanes in the United States, should they be called aircraft maintenance mechanics or aircraft maintenance engineers. But you'll have to go back to that episode and find out, and then we'll set that up. And some fun things too coming up that I'll discuss that will be coming up on the CotAcasT in future episodes. But yeah, we'll be discussing the FAA system outage and the NOTAM system, what actually was evidently responsible. And the second thing I'll discuss is this incident that apparently occurred at JFK hometown airport, and it occurred with a 777 and a 37. Two Boeings, one operated by Delta and one operated by American Airlines. And I thought it was pretty interesting. A couple of things that I looked at when I looked into these two things. Again, another topic that somebody had brought up to me. So yeah, we'll dive into those two things today. I have no problem. First things first. Today's episode of the CotAcasT is sponsored. It's sponsored by CraftoftheAir, the company. Yeah, because we don't have any sponsors yet. But today's episode is brought to you by CraftoftheAir. Don't just memorize outdated content, and stop rereading prepware without understanding what you're reading. Everybody that's in flight school, whatever you're studying in aviation, there's those days and you start looking at content, you're reading stuff, and you're like, man, I had to read that link. I had to read that page like 3 times. And I still don't know what they're talking about. We all know that we have those days. Maybe not 3 times, but no. But CraftoftheAir is there for just that reason. If you're looking to obtain an A&P license and need a little extra help, CraftoftheAir offers personalized learning sessions remotely from the convenience of your house. Are you in the field of aviation and need help accomplishing your next big project? What big project are you working on? Tired of searching endlessly for unreliable data online? You're opening up this tab, you're opening up that tab, you're opening up that, you're looking at this website. What website can you trust? CraftoftheAir is the second you when you need it. Anything aviation, CraftoftheAir works for you. Just visit www.craftoftheair.com. That's all together. Again, that's www.craftoftheair.com today, and speak with a federally licensed professional. CraftoftheAir, our craft is of the air. All right. The first topic on the CotAcasT today, we're discussing that crazy outage, the FAA outage that occurred last week. Everything was resumed. Excuse me. Everything was resumed Wednesday morning, or around the afternoon, a couple of hours, several hours after that system outage. And it was, I'll tell you what, as someone in aviation, it's somewhat of a nerve-wracking, helpless feeling seeing something like that, on the news and getting the text from friends. Majority of the texts somewhat funny in nature, but you just couldn't blame us. We had nothing to do with it. But it's somewhat of a helpless feeling, I guess. Seeing this unfold, and while you're not directly responsible for it, and while what you do as a mechanic or a pilot, while you weren't directly responsible, it affects you. Honestly, it embarrasses us as a country. I'm being completely honest. Well, see, the budget that was allocated towards the FAA for the and I'll make a point about that when I get to it. Let me get there. Anyway, this attack. This I was gonna say attack. This it was an attack. If you haven't read the articles, we have confirmed or at least have been told that it wasn't an attack. But as of noon on Wednesday, there are more than 7,300 flights, 7,300 flights that were affected by this outage. And I think there were over 1,200 flights listed as canceled. Excuse me. Now, according to the FAA, a corrupted file was to be blamed. Wow. A corrupted file? Like that? Like it's just that, like that's it? Like it's just that simple for a corrupted file. I mean, we do data loads as AMPs. We do an FMS update using the data loader, or however you do it for your airline. We know we do this kind of stuff, but the corrupted file, how can it affect the entire system? The corrupted file, and the FAA had, and let me get a little bit more specific. The FAA had said that this corrupted file had affected both the primary and the backup system. Yes, the primary and the backup system. That was according to a senior government official later that day, on Wednesday. Later that, on the evening of Wednesday, after the whole thing, after the whole debacle had already happened. And I think the FAA had said a statement. I'll quote the FAA on this one. So the FAA is continuing a thorough review to determine the root cause of the NOTAM. NOTAM is a notice to air missions system outage. And that's the agency said that in a statement. It also went on to say, and I quote, "Our preliminary work has traced the outage to a damaged database file. Now, at this time, there is no evidence of a cyber attack." Nah, I didn't think it was to begin with. Of course, I had a couple of buddies. You all have the friends, the conspiracy theory friends, that as soon as something happens, even if it just has the simplest explanation, they hit you with the text that it was a conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory friends that we all have. Getting the text that it was Russia. It's an attack by Russia. I don't, in my opinion, I don't think that. So I think that we have a very simplistic explanation that I get to in just a second. So they had investigated it. They made that statement. It went it goes as so far. I mean, we're speaking about 7,300 flights, and that's not accounting for the 1,200 flights that were listed as canceled. How many lives You know, one of the one of the best things about my job as a A&P, fixing airplanes, was at the end of my night, if I had time, if it wasn't a crazy night, I'll drive out to my plane. Well, we had to be there, you know, to kind of babysit the plane for the important, you know, the planes that are being pushed back in the morning, kind of the way to you know. Anyway, we you know, one of the best things about being an A&P for me was in the morning watching that plane and watching the passengers boarding on that plane that I worked on all night. And I would think about all the places that those people were flying to, and thinking about if they were going to see somebody they loved, or maybe they were going on an interview, or I don't know, something sad happened, and I would think about those things because I loved my job, you know, and I knew that I knew I did everything I could to make that plane as safe as it could be. Everything I did. I trust the people I love the most in this world to get on the plane that I fixed. I can't help but to think about those thousands of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people that were affected by the system outage. Not only the people that didn't get on the aircraft, but what about the family members? The people waiting for them, the plans they had, the money they spent, the adventures they looked to take. Do you like the way I made that sound? It's like a postcard. It's like could be a card, something you write inside a card. Senator Maria Cantwell, the Democrat of Washington who heads the Commerce Committee, which oversees the FAA. It's big time. She said that she too will look into the matter, and I quote her as saying the number one priority is safety as the committee prepares for the FAA. It goes without saying, and I'll say this too. You also say that one of the top Republicans, Ted Cruz of Texas. I'll say that, see that Republican Ted Cruz, quote him as saying the FAA's inability to keep an important safety system up and running is completely unacceptable, and just the latest example of dysfunction within the Department of Transportation. I'm not going to say that I agree with that or disagree with that. It's a solid point by Mr. Ted Cruz. All right, that I mean now what is this system? Let me get into that really quickly. This system that was this catastrophic system failure. I mean this is now what this system is. It's a notice to what it stands for. NOTAM is a notice to air missions, and it's an acronym. Aviation has so many acronyms. We have books, we have textbooks that are just acronyms. For those of you not in the field, we have so many acronyms, and NOTAM is a notice to air missions, and it's basically it's a system. It's a computer system. It's run by the Department of Transportation, by the FAA, and in real time, this system alerts or presents to crews about situations that may affect or relate to the weather and ground conditions, any type of infrastructure, anything surrounding or anything that may affect the flight airworthiness, the safety of that flight. This is a system that alerts. It can tell pilots something as simple as there's at this airport that you're flying to, there's some construction vehicles on your right hand side. There's a building being brought up there. Or it can have serious information. This NOTAM can say, hey, at that airport that you're flying to, runway 5 left is actually closed. Or hey, that airport that you're flying to, there's a certain comm system that's not available there. So this system is important. All right. It's and I should point out that it is illegal for an aircraft. Yes, it's illegal for an aircraft to push back before the flight crew has checked this NOTAM system. And so this NOTAM system was it was inoperative this day. So they couldn't check it. The FAA requires that flight crews review the NOTAMs before every flight. And that's for safety reasons. And it's a good policy to have in place. It's interesting. It's very interesting, and I think I had read that they said an engineer was responsible for copying this corrupt file. I'm not even gonna get into that. I'm not gonna put my 2 cents into that. Well, you don't even want to call an AMP an engineer, but this person's an engineer that copies files from folder to folder. And now let me bring it to this. I find this all very interesting. This system is in many years away from being updated. Yeah. Now, and it was reported by CNN. It's undergone a couple of upgrades over the years, but it's a 30-year-old system. Yeah. According to that, report by CNN, an upgrade is still close to about 6 to 7 years away. And I find this extremely interesting because we see that's, it's very evident that we have a technology gap that must be filled. The infrastructure is not current, or at least it seems this way. I mean, tell me, if a system is so easily compromised by copying and pasting a corrupt file, and it single-handedly is responsible for canceling 7,300 flights, cannot it be this updated? I don't know. That's just me. Maybe we need to get an IT professional on the show. I found it interesting as well that we all know about the Southwest debacle that happened on Christmas. That was just egregious. That Southwest debacle. I read that Southwest, unofficially, they estimate their losses for Q4 and 22 to close to $1 billion. Yeah. That's just Q4. I don't know if they were holding a profit before. Now I'm gonna have to get a financial analyst on this show. Well, close to $1 billion. Oof. I think so they're expecting, obviously, for a Q4 loss, to post a Q4 loss, Southwest. They canceled 16,700 flights. What the? 16,700 holiday flights. That's egregious. The reason why I bring this up, I'm making a point. I found this quote by Southwest Airlines Pilots Association President, Mr. Casey Murray, and he expresses disappointment for the delays that have occurred with Southwest. And he said it was in a lack of effort from the airline to upgrade its software. We're speaking about software again. We're speaking about software with the FAA outage, about copying and pasting a file that completely grounded the system. And now we're speaking about software, outdated software, that in this case for Southwest, over 16,700 flights for outdated systems. The president of the Southwest Airlines Pilot Association, Mr. Casey Murray, went on to say, SWAPA, that's the Southwest Airlines Pilot Association, SWAPA, I like the way that sounds. Mr. Murray says, and I quote, SWAPA has provided unlimited data over the past several years to provide solutions, so that I want to frame this differently. We all know that Southwest Airlines has buried its head in the sand regarding its operational processes and IT. And even though irrefutable analytics and data have been provided by us again and again, this is quoted by Mr. Murray, pride in their outdated processes and technology continues to drive the management. Oh, I just save that for another podcast. I gotta get Mr. Murray on this. It's very clear to me that the system is dated. It's dated. It needs that maybe there needs to be a bigger budget allocated towards the FAA. Now, we're speaking about budget. Well, I have a point to make on the budget. And I'll go to a quote that I found by something that Delta Airlines CEO Ed Basin said on Friday. And Delta Airlines CEO says, the outage could prove a key talking point as the FAA enters its federal funding reauthorization process. The FAA and other industry leaders have previously complained. Now I'll point this out. And this was pointed out, and I'll say this. I read something interesting. A point made by Delta Airlines CEO Ed Basin. This outage could be key, and you can take what you want from this. I'm not starting a conspiracy. I'm not saying this was anything. I think it was a corrupted file. I think someone messed up. Period. But the FAA, this could be a key talking point for the FAA, because they're going or entering their federal funding reauthorization process. Their budget, their federal funding is set to expire in 2023. The FAA in 2018, they signed the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018. That's not true. And with this contract, this was in 2018, okay? In 2018, the final legislation authorized a total of $96.7 billion in funding for federal aviation programs for 5 years. And what it comes out to, when you think of, you're like, well, $96.7 billion, that's crazy. Well, what it actually comes out to is the actual amount that they were getting was roughly around 16.8 billion. I see 60.8, something like that. And the rest is allocated over time. Now, this is set to expire. And I wonder what case this makes for the FAA for a new budget. before 2018, the FAA had a budget that was actually high. Now, it dips in 2018 when they signed the Reauthorization Act of 2018, and now it's stuck at 3.35 billion, but they're asking for more. I wonder what kind of case that makes. If you ask me, the system does need to be updated. And so that may be something that gives the FAA a little bit of additional funding from the federal government. I think it's needed. I think the system is outdated. I think things can be greatly improved. I'm not saying things are bad. Me personally, I've never come across any practice or procedure. I'm not saying this just to say it because I'm on a podcast, but any FAA or DOT practice, procedure, or maybe it's just the settings that I've worked in. I've never found anything that I thought needed to be improved. Now, when we speak about 14 CFR Part 147 maintenance schools, I can make a couple of podcasts about that. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I have one more quick topic. And the CotAcasT wraps it up with something I found pretty interesting. And we go into an incident that occurred at John F. Kennedy Airport. And this incident involved a Delta Airlines 37 and an American 777. And the FAA is now investigating this. It was a really close call. I believe it happened around 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And there was an American Airlines 777. It was coming from, it's kind of like an adjacent taxiway. And air traffic controllers noticed this. It's all over the internet. And you can hear the air traffic controllers. They don't sound as calm as you normally expect them to, and rightly so. The ATC gentleman sounds a little upset. Should be. At the 777, there was audio posted, and you can actually hear ATC saying Delta 1943 cancel takeoff planes. Delta 1943 cancel takeoff plans. And they hear somebody saying rejecting. Another clip appears to be the conversation between the ATC and one of the American Airlines. And you can hear the frustration. Man, you can hear the frustration on ATC to the American Airlines 777 flight crew. He says, I guess. This is ATC saying to the American Airlines Heavy 777. It says, I guess we'll listen to the tapes, but you were supposed to depart runway 4 left. You're currently holding short of runway 31 left. Boing, boing. And he's so smug about it. Oh man, this pilot is so chill and smug about it. Woof. He said, well, did you not just tell us to cross the runway? And ATC, JFK Tower is like, I guess we'll listen to the tapes, but you were supposed to depart runway 4 left. You're currently holding short of runway 31 left. A spokesman for Delta said the safety of our customers and crew are the airline's top priority. Delta chronicled Delta as saying, we'll work with and assist aviation authorities on a full review of Flight 1943 on January 13th regarding an aborted takeoff procedure at New York JFK. We apologize to our customers for the inconvenience and the delay of their air travels. It wasn't Delta's fault. Now let me break it down. Here's what's happening. And I took it upon myself to look at the JFK chart, the airport chart with the taxiways and the runways. And for those of you not familiar, we have the runways, and the runways obviously where we take off and land, where the aircraft arrives and departs from. And then we have the taxiways in between these runways and in between the runway and the airport and the gates that we go to. And think of these taxiways as little streets that the aircraft can use to navigate between the runway and the airport and the terminal, or maybe a hangar somewhere inside this airport. And so these taxiways in some of the bigger airports, there can be a lot of them. It can be a little confusing, particularly if you're not familiar with the airport that you've flown into. We had this Delta flight 1943. It was a 37, so it's a much smaller aircraft. The American Airlines aircraft is a 777 Boeing. This is a very large aircraft. In fact, you can hear them over the ATC transmission saying, referring to this American Airlines flight as American Airlines Heavy. And those of you not familiar, whenever you hear a flight associated, a flight, American Airlines Flight 525 Heavy, this is a large aircraft. There's a lot of souls on board. Now, this Delta aircraft is on a runway. This runway is 4 left. This Delta aircraft is getting ready to depart. It did everything, this flight crew did everything perfectly correct and to procedure to that point, to get to that point. And they're cleared to take off down runway 4 left. And we have a taxiway. And when I looked at my airport chart of JFK, I see as airport taxiway Juliet. And Juliet, these taxiways, these streets that I referred to, these taxiways, they're referred to by the aeronautic alphabet. So we have taxiway K, that's taxiway Kilo. If I see a taxiway on an airport chart and it says J, that's taxiway Juliet. If I see a taxiway that says A, that's taxiway Alpha. I see that right crossing adjacent, right smack right across runway 4 left is taxiway Juliet, and that's the taxiway that this American Airlines 777 was going down right when this Delta Airlines aircraft, this 37, was departing. Now, here's the messed up part. The Delta 37 that did everything right, he aborted his takeoff. When you abort a takeoff, that aircraft has to come back to the gate. That aircraft slammed on its brakes to full maximum power. And this aircraft has to come to a full, complete stop very quickly. So now this aircraft has to be deplaned and re-inspected. And now we have flight crew, procedures, and regulations that may not be able to be adhered to. Meaning maybe our flight crew needs rest now, just because of that aborted landing. But anyway, this aborted landing forced this Delta Airlines flight to come back to the gate, and this plane was destined for Santo Domingo. I bet you half those people were going on vacation. Half those people were going to see family. And that plane had to remain overnight and had to depart the next day, all because this American Airlines 777 didn't know how to navigate at JFK International Airport. I mean, and they got to where they were going. But you got to check out the audio. It's just, make a mistake, but own up to it. Don't sit there like
Bob, I don't know what I did. What am I, Scooby-Doo? Scooby-Doo's flying the plane now.
All right. That's it. You like the impersonations? That note, that wraps it up for this episode of the CotAcasT. This week's of the CotAcasT episode. If you have not done so already, take this opportunity to check out the CraftoftheAir website and subscribe to the CraftoftheAir Instagram. Do it. You gotta do it. You gotta go do it now. Subscribe to their CraftoftheAir Instagram page to always be in the CraftoftheAir loop. And there's a lot of exciting things coming up. So you just be with that. Be up with the times. And I'll tell you this. We just added the CotAcasT to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and SoundCloud's podcast. Oof! It's covered every platform. You have no excuse to not listen and tell every single person that you know about the CotAcasT. But anyway, thanks again for listening to this episode of CotAcasT. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on the Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, wherever you're listening to us. And again, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor. We are the sponsor, CraftoftheAir. Don't just memorize outdated content and stop rereading prep work without understanding what you're reading. If you're looking to obtain your A&P license and need a little extra help, CraftoftheAir offers personalized learning solutions remotely from the convenience of your house. Are you in the field of aviation and need help accomplishing your next big thing, project, whatever it is? Are you tired of searching endlessly for unreliable data online? Well, CraftoftheAir is the second you when you need it. Anything aviation, CraftoftheAir works for you. So just visit www.craftoftheair.com today. Again, that's www.craftoftheair.com today and speak with a federally licensed professional. CraftoftheAir, our craft is of the air. That about wraps it up, guys. I look to see you guys next week. Take care, guys.